Hey, welcome back to the podcast. It's Sunday, November 2nd. No shave November, boys. No shave November. I'm going to try it, but I just can't grow a beard. A lot of blank spaces on the face when it comes to growing a beard. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about something I haven't really touched on at all this summer, this season, is some mayor's races, some elections coming up here on Tuesday, the 4th of November. We have the Stamford mayor's race to talk about. I want to just mention some thoughts on the New York City mayor's race in Mamdani, and then briefly just touch on Virginia governor's race and New Jersey governor's race. Stamford, Connecticut has been my home for some years now, though having grown up in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, having worked in Midtown Manhattan for years, and having driven a limo during college between Providence, Rhode Island and Midtown Manhattan, I've driven through Stamford hundreds of times. If you travel from the south and the west, heading for points north and east into New England, millions have driven through Stamford. It's one of the many choke points on 95 north and south. I know the city pretty well. I walk the city regularly. I drive around the city a good deal. I'm a pretty active citizen in terms of being out and about. Stamford is home to approximately 140,000 people. It's the second or third largest city in Connecticut, competing with New Haven and Bridgeport. And it's about the 200th largest city in America. Stamford breaks down 48% white, 28% Hispanic, 12% Black, 9% Asian. These numbers are from the 2020 census, having probably changed somewhat with increase in both the Hispanic population and the Asian population led by Indian nationals since that time. 2025-2026 budget for the city is $715 million, up 5% from the prior year. A little higher than the rate of inflation, with education taking nearly 50% of the total, followed by city employee incomes. Third is debt services, 6.6% of the total, reaching $47 million. Fourth is retirement benefits account for about 6%. Oh my God, over generous pensions is the problem there. Fifth on the list, employee benefits, and then all else the government does accounts for 18.6% of the budget. Houston, we have a problem. Stamford city government sounds like a jobs program. Full-time salaries, retirement benefits, and employee benefits account for 25.8% of the total budget, or $184 million. Boy, is that unsustainable. For decades, Stamford was the poor stepchild to Greenwich, New Canaan, Darien, Westport. Though since the COVID lockdowns, the city's fortunes have been reversed. It was the relatively cheap place to live, rent, park, eat. That isn't the case any longer. Though still cheaper than those other nearby towns, Stamford is a very expensive city now. A decent one-bedroom apartment is north of $1,900. A nice condo will cost you north of $400,000. A single-family home on a small lot, less than 3,000 square feet, will cost you $650,000 or higher. Stamford has 2 public golf courses that are pricey to play and has a handful of decent parks. It's a northwest-southeast city with 5 north-south streets that get from the south to the north part of town. It has a bunch of nice neighborhoods with beautiful homes along the coastline. There is some beach access. And as for most cities today, its downtown area is full of restaurants. Downtown Stamford has become the dining and drinking destination for people from neighboring towns. If you like Italian food, you have lots to choose from. The pizza is pretty good in Stamford as well. We have a Frank Pepe's, we have a Sally's of Pizza, the New Haven legends. But number one is the Bronx House up in North Stamford near the Twin Rinks. Really, really great slice. And then also number 2 is Slice, which is on Newfield Avenue near the Grade A Market. We have a Whole Foods and a Trader Joe's and plenty of other supermarkets. It's a reasonably safe city with low violent crime, though somewhat elevated property crime. Nationally, it has an average crime ranking of around 48%, which implies it's safer than 48% of the U.S. cities out there. With that said, though, the city has been mismanaged for years, though the real impacts of the poor management have been masked by the city's proximity to New York City and having a relatively large Amtrak and Metro North rail hub. In the early 2000s, it was thrown a lifeline when banks in Manhattan began considering Stamford as a good location for the trading and investment banking activities. The Union Bank of Switzerland led the way, building a huge new building right on State Street adjacent to the Stamford train station, with the largest trading floor in the country. Many other banks followed, though in just a few short years, algorithmic trading models took over trading in stocks, bonds, commodities, and foreign exchange, such that headcounts dropped dramatically and the party was over for Stamford. For the next 15 years, it was a struggle. And then the lifeline that was the COVID lockdowns pulled the city back. The COVID lockdown saved Stamford in many ways, increasing population growth, pushing up home prices for owners and rents for landlords, and spending on food away from home. Even so, I would suggest it's still a poorly run city. Infrastructure, public schools, public safety, road safety, cost of living, traffic and traffic patterns, services are all wanting. It is a blue city and a blue state, having been run by Democrats most of the past 45 years. Since 1980, Republicans had control of the mayor's office for only 11 out of the 45 years. 1980 to 1983, 1991 to 95, 2009 to 2013. And today, the chances of a Republican winning are less than 30%. And that's if you're a moderate Republican. A conservative has no shot. I would have loved to run for mayor. I actually gave it a little thought. But I couldn't win, given the voter registration so markedly favoring Democrats, to say nothing of my ability to raise the $300,000 needed to properly compete against incumbent Mayor Simmons. Which brings me to incumbent Democrat Mayor Caroline Simmons, who is running for re-election. She's an impressive woman with an excellent education, a wonderful family. I've had the chance to meet her and to speak with her. I just disagree with her policy positions. Republicans have selected their candidate and have done so in such a way to avoid a primary, which is very smart. The Stamford Republican Town Committee is run by a good guy, Joe DeRuta. He doesn't have much behind him to work with, though. The party is not strong in Stamford. Republicans are running Nicola Tarzia. Born and raised in Stamford, his background is in construction and real estate. He was on the Stamford Board of Education as vice president. He has talked about increasing commercial property taxes, and he is all in on green agenda in construction and infrastructure. Not typically popular Republican positions, but again, for running in a blue city and a blue state, understandable. The probability of him winning is low. As I said, less than 30% chance. I'm guessing U.S. Congress or Connecticut governor is likely on her radar. The mayor has talked about going all in on electrifying the city, the Green New Deal, plus efforts to improve infrastructure, increasing supply of housing, improve public transportation, renovating the Stamford train station and its surrounding area, improving sidewalks and roads. The city needs transportation help, that is for sure. Decades of poor city planning has made driving around Stamford a challenge, and with increased population, it's only become worse. Some of the traffic patterns are hysterically bad. Reddit even has a meme about Stamford intersections, which you can see on the screen here. Check out my list of videos. Go back a few months to see my podcast on Stamford intersections. Kind of funny. Anyway, the city needs to use eminent domain to widen roads, create left and right turn lanes, synchronize traffic lights, install more smart traffic lights, enforce parking laws, get control of the delivery app drivers, get control of the exponential growth in the use of mopeds and electric bikes in the city, many on roads and sidewalks illegally. I saw 4 teenagers, probably 13, 14, 15, riding what looked like dirt bikes, but they're electric, with dirt bike wheels and dirt bike fenders and dirt bike other things. And they're riding on the sidewalks and the roads, 13, 14, 15 years old, cruising around 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. It's got to stop. As many Stamford residents can attest, it would appear Mayor Simmons had years ago instructed the Stamford police to back off enforcement of moving traffic violations, enforcement of parking laws, and the like. This is part of the Blue State, Blue City defund the police operations coming out of the summer of 2020. It's evident all around the city. Parking violations are rampant all over the city. Moving traffic violations are evident all over the city. Don't tell me you're worried about global warming and you allow parking violations that cause more stops and starts, more acceleration, more standing with engines idling. Delivery app drivers are running wild all over the city, particularly in the downtown area, and Harbor Point is 2 best examples. The police do nothing, even when they witness it. Go spend an evening at the corner of Broad Street and Bedford Street at the McDonald's or Pacific Street in Harbor Point. Watch the chaos that ensues and the blatant disregard to parking laws and regulations by the app drivers. The lack of enforcement has sent the moral hazard on the part of drivers through the roof, taking risks for which there are no consequences. The city needs help, and the current mayor and board of representatives are focused on the wrong things, in my opinion. Equity, global warming, inclusivity, and protecting and supporting non-citizens. Stamford needs to focus on the basics for a while. It's just a few things. Quality of life. Bring back the night, bring back the quiet. And what is best for residents first? Infrastructure. The roads are horrible and too much focus on sidewalks, handicap ramps, last mile transportation ideas. Take a look at the conditions of the wires hanging between telephone poles all over the city. It's a mess. Just one example, drive from Shippan Avenue up Elm Street to Grove Street to Strawberry Hill Avenue to Newfield Avenue. The roads are a mess. Road repair in Stamford actually means the road condition gets worse, not better. They fix potholes by creating shallower potholes, or even worse, by making potholes bumps. They fill in the holes and make bumps. And you just feel it driving around the city. They did so over the summer. I don't know if you've noticed, there's been some efforts to improve some roads, to fill in potholes, to redo sidewalks. July, August, September here. As we approach the election, I'm sure Mayor Simmons and her team trying to spruce things up a little bit to ensure their re-election. But the infrastructure work on roads is awful. Anyone that drives around Stamford knows this for sure. Apparently, Stamford Public Works and their private sector contractors are incapable of installing a manhole cover flush with the road surface. I have a great example for you and something you can do on your own. Take a drive from one of the craziest intersections of Stamford, where Summer Street starts, heading south. This is just the Bull's Head neighborhood. And from that intersection where Summer Street starts down to Broad Street, about 1.7 miles long, it's a minefield of poorly installed manhole covers, dozens and dozens of them. You can just call them potholes. I'm not even going to go into the quality of work done on road repair. Again, the privatization failure. You can take out your suspension if you're not careful. I think all drivers in Stamford should have a class action lawsuit against the city for tire and rim damage. Road safety and parking, just enforce the laws. Apparently in doing so is beneath the pay grade of patrol units, because there are just a few parking officers in the city, and they're looking mainly at meter violation. In Stamford, stop signs are yield signs are green lights, crosswalks are invisible, no parking means parking, no standing means parking, no stopping means parking. Parking meters mean no paying, travel lanes are parking lanes, no turn on red means turn on red. Next, reducing debt by reducing spending, reducing administrative costs by cutting the size of government. This is primarily the case when it comes to administrative salaries in the public school system. Reduce pension benefits, or even better, end pensions and do what the private sector has done long ago and move all to 401ks, defined contribution plans. We should stop chasing business formation with giveaways and let the quality management of the city do the talking to attract businesses of any size. And we should deliver services properly and efficiently, stop privatization, improve school busing. The number of stops, the distance between stops have to be managed better. We need to rebalance the powers of the Board of Representatives and the mayor's office. The board has too much power. The Stamford mayor's office is not a very powerful office. We need to redraw Board of Representative districts by making districts larger to reduce the size of the board. It's too big. Now, I have a nice home in Stamford. I have a great job in Stamford. I enjoy the food in Stamford. North Stamford is lovely. I enjoy the golf courses. I love the coastline. And overall, Stamford is not a bad place to live. Of course, we are hemmed in by Route 95 in the south and the Merritt Parkway in the north. And at any time, your local trip to Greenwich or Southport could go from 15 minutes to an hour or more. As many have learned over the years, and I've done for a long time, is ideally the simplest and least stressful travel is in the early AM or late PM to avoid the chaos. Stamford could do much better with different and better governance. All it would take is to focus on the little things, the quality of life things. Just some thoughts on Stamford and the Stamford mayor's race. Now I just want to talk a little bit about the New York City mayor's race. What a mess. 9 million people, and these are the candidates we have. Cuomo, the failed governor, Mamdani, the avowed Democrat socialist, and Curtis Sliwa. Thank you, Curtis, for trying for decades to provide some safety on subways with your Red Beret crew. Nice job, but you are not the answer, and you will not be mayor. So New Yorkers are left with the Democrat socialist or the failed governor. How amazingly. Just what they deserve, New Yorkers. Blue city in a blue state. New York City is quite a contradiction. I lived there for many, many years. Love my time in New York City because there's so many great things about the city. The challenge every New Yorker knows, though, there are nearly as many bad things about the city. The energy, the convenience, the food, the entertainment, the excitement, the critical mass of well-educated, bright people, really fun. But so much crap. The city's been mismanaged for so long by so many different politicians. And just one example we use, it's the easy example. Travel the world and enjoy the subway systems of some of the other world's biggest cities, and then come back and get into New York City subway system. It's one of the best glaring examples of one city run poorly and another city run well. Now, I'll qualify that quickly. Aging infrastructure, nowhere to go. Tough to really upgrade New York City subway. Boy, oh boy, could it just be cleaner? New York City's been a mess since the 1970s. It had a little bit of a window opening during the Giuliani years and the first years of the Bloomberg administration. But the last two terms of the Bloomberg administration, de Blasio, Adams, and now this, and a far left city council has meant that the city just continues to go deeper and deeper into debt, mismanagement. City's in debt to the tune of about $107 billion, massive debt burden, huge interest payments. And so now we have the front runners, Zoran Mamdani. And it looks like the winner on Tuesday, the Democrat socialists, whose policies will hurt New York. He wants to freeze rent, wants to build more affordable housing. That's been something talked about for decades and decades. There's one little challenge with building affordable housing, and that is the cost of doing business in the New York City area. But freezing rent, building affordable housing, freezing rent's not going to solve any problems. And freezing rent is going to make building affordable housing harder. He wants to build a Department of Community Safety. This is more of the defund police from the Democrats. They've been pushing since 2020, using non-police force personnel to solve problems they think do not require police intervention. Citywide mental health program and crisis response teams deploy dedicated outreach workers in 100 subway stations, providing medical services in vacant commercial units. Wants to attack affordability in the city by having city-owned grocery stores. Thousands of examples over the decades of how this fails. I give you the Soviet Union as our best example, Venezuela. It's been tried in other blue cities. It's failed. Fast, fair, free buses. Free buses, really? You're going to maintain the MTA? We put in congestion pricing to help build the budget for the MTA to improve infrastructure, transportation. And now you want to do free buses? Who's going to be on these buses? Wants to fight corporate exploitation, free childcare. He wants to increase tax on corporations in the 1%. He wants green schools for health in New York, LGBTQIA protections, wants to raise the minimum wage in the city to $30 by 2030. He wants a Trump-proof New York City. So Mamdani will fight Trump's attempts to gouge the working class and deliver a city where everyone can afford a dignified life. He'll ensure immigrant New Yorkers are protected from ICE. He'll make New York City an LGBTQIA plus sanctuary city, protect reproductive rights. Free stuff and more blue city, blue state stuff. Very little experience, nice looking guy, speaks well, presents himself well. The Democrat primary turnout was 22%, pathetic. This man has no experience, no significant educational background, comes from a wealthy family, playing the I'll help the poor card. It's not going to work. New York City's fiscal position is so bad, it's going to only worsen it. Increase in taxes, a tax on the rich, a tax on corporations is going to cause people to leave the city. And if it's not Mamdani, it's Cuomo. And the only way Cuomo has a chance is because people are afraid of Mamdani's policies. Democrat socialist policies do not succeed. If you oppose free market capitalism, you're not for America, because that's what America is based on, free market capitalism. If you're for more government, that's been proven to be a failure for decades. Unaffordable. So it's the lesser of two evils for New York voters. Lots of early voting already occurs. Looks like Mamdani will be the next mayor. And many on the right are saying, okay, fine. Let's expose it. Let's expose the agenda of a Democrat socialist. Let's see what happens. Keep in mind now, the New York City Council is as far left as Mamdani is. So it get really bad really quickly. Mayor Adams was not a successful mayor. De Blasio, not a successful mayor. Bloomberg is the one who really started to turn things on the head when it came to New York City. Bloomberg seemed to be jealous of the international cities in Europe that attracted the rest of the world's billionaires and wanted to make sure New York City had a part of that. When you think about affordability in New York City, immigration is one of the big issues. Immigration at all socioeconomic levels. Foreign nationals owning New York City real estate. When it comes to affordability, there's only a couple of choices you have that can improve affordability, and that is increase supply and reduce demand. It's very likely the proposals Mamdani is suggesting will not be successful. And the city will suffer another 4 years of decay, putting on a path to ruin it's been on for a long time. All right, that's all a little insight onto Mamdani. That's all I really have to say. I just mentioned the New Jersey governor's race, way too tight for Democrats. The Virginia race, also too tight for Democrats. Jack Ciattarelli is doing some good things in New Jersey. Not so sure he's winning votes as much as the Democrats are losing votes. Sherelle is having a hard time with her past insider trading, some concerns over her integrity regarding her military experience. Polls are close, but they shouldn't be this close. And it's a very interesting development in New Jersey. New Jersey could go red. And then again, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the Virginia governor's race, Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earl Sears. Close race. Glenn Youngkin is the departing governor, Republican. Been in office since 2022. You may ask yourself, why isn't Republican Glenn Youngkin running again? Well, you get one single term in Virginia, non-renewable 4-year term. So that seat is regularly changing. Now, what's interesting about Virginia is that Democrats far outweigh Republicans in voter registrations, and that usually is a deciding factor in a race. Democrats, something like 52% of registrations against Republicans, 30% unaffiliated, 18%. The belief is most unaffiliated voters are Republicans. And so we might put Republicans at, instead of 30%, maybe 40%-ish, 45%. But still, Democrats seem to have a meaningful lead there. But I hope for a win for Ciattarelli in New Jersey and for Sears in Virginia, although I think the Sears race is the least likely of the two. Mamdani wins in New York City to the peril of the city, and Simmons will win on Tuesday here in Stamford. All right, that's all I have for you right now. Always try to buy American.